Good morning, everyone. This is Rama on Riding coming to you live from a beautiful sunny Sedona, Arizona. Today we are featuring another author interview and book launch with Leah Downing. She was the fastest of her group to publish. I like calling people like Leah the overachievers. And Leah, why don't you introduce yourself with your name, the name of your book, and your website address, and then tell us a little bit about your book.
Okay, good morning, Rama. Thank you so much for having me on today. My name is Leah Downing. The title of my book is Catch a Falling Star, and it is a fiction novel, the first of a 5-part series. My website is just my name, leahdowning.com, and my Twitter handle is at LEDOWNING author. So my book is, like I said, the first of a 5-part series, and it follows the journey of a woman who was charged in assisting in a homeland terrorist attack. The reader is unaware if she was actually guilty of assisting in the attack or not, but she was exonerated on the national level. The first book, Catch a Falling Star, is more of a romance as it introduces you to our main point of view character, Lauren St. Germain. Through this book, we're not sure if she is married, if she's divorced, if she's widowed. We follow her through a relationship that she fosters with a British citizen who's trying to make it in the film industry. And we're not really sure what happened during that terrorist attack. We're not sure if she indeed helped in it. And then we also come to understand that her husband, whose last name is Saint Germain, has a multi-generational curse on his family from a supernatural entity called the Jinn, which is spelled D as in Delta, Jinn. And they are the sort of original genies. They're found in the Quran and in the Old Testament of the Bible. The book ends on a cliffhanger where we want to know what the outcome of her relationship with her husband, if there is any. And then we also come to realize that the Jinn have been moving through world leaders to perpetuate war during, I use basically the 20th century, 21st century, 1900s, 20th century, thank you, the 20th century. So in a nutshell, that's it. All 5 books, the first 2 books are completely written. The 3rd book is halfway written, and the 4th and 5th books are storyboarded. So I already know how it ends.
Sounds good. Now, Leah, why this topic? What's your connection with the topic?
Well, my former employment and career was as a federal investigator, and really I just spent a lot of time driving around in the desert and interviewing people who are seeking security clearances. And my husband worked out at a range at Fort Bliss, and he basically built IEDs, which are improvised explosional devices. And he would set them up out in the desert so that soldiers who were pre-deployment to Afghanistan during the 2007 to 2010 timeframe would have to go and try to locate these IEDs in the desert. There was no explosive component in it during these training cycles. And so with these 2 careers in my household during this time, and so much time on my hands in the car driving out to secure locations, deployment centers, white sands, things like that, my mind just sort of drifted around on like, what would happen if what would happen if somebody knew about all of these fabricated IEDs out in the desert, which is an unsecured area outside of Fort Bliss? What would happen if terrorists got in there and actually added the explosive element into it? They would have, you know, a whole troop of everything from enlisted men to, you know, very elite SF troops coming through the very next morning, literally looking for IEDs and tripping them, just like how they're set up in Afghanistan. So that was kind of one thought that went through my mind for years while I was out there. And then the other thought too is I just have a really active imagination and a very unhealthy crush on a British actor that I thought it would be kind of fun to imagine what it would be like to be in a relationship with someone in the movie business. So I combined the whole thing together.
It sounds very complex, and that was my next question is, well, there are two questions here. First one, what was the hardest part of getting this book, completed for you? So let's address that question first.
Okay. Completing the book was very easy. The hardest part of bringing it to the form of a publishable novel was really after doing the editing and being dedicated into the editing and understanding that what my initial vision was had to be able to be changed as time went on. I think a hard thing for myself and a lot of other people is you have this idea of what it's going to be, how it's going to look, how the story is going to definitely be, how all of your characters are going to be at the beginning. And then, after you finish your manuscript and you go through the editing process, and you have other people, I had a lot of people putting their eyes on my novel and getting feedback to it, and then going in and saying, okay, what do I reasonably want to change? What don't I want to change? What does the book need to be changed in order to be a better story? So I think being able to morph with it and adjust it and not be too emotionally hung up on things that needed to be changed were the hardest things for me to work through.
What would be your advice to somebody who's starting out on this quest of writing a novel, maybe writing a novel with, several books?
I would say trust your gut on things. There were, like you and I have talked about before, Rama, the use of the word snarky. There were things that, professional editors or just laymen that, you are nice enough to read your book and give you advice on. Sometimes you start to question things that you really, really liked at the get-go. I would say trust your gut to know when those things are appropriate to keep in. But also know that if your gut isn't 100% telling you to do something, take it out. Like, sometimes people can tell you things, and if you're like, yeah, that sounds about right, or I'm going to try to take it out, The other piece of advice that I would give to anybody going through this process is that you ultimately are the only person who's going to care about your book, your story, and your career. It all comes down to how you get it out there. I was moving mats yesterday and cleaning floors and cleaning toilets at the Cirque School of Arizona to put my event on. There's nobody else that's going to care or do all of these things for me. I'm the only one that can sit down every day at my computer and make the decision to write and to blow off my dishes, which I don't mind doing that. But, I think that the biggest piece of advice I'd say is use Tom's program, which we're all in, but know that it's only going to work if you, like the actual author, is the one who puts in the 100% in every single thing. So it's a lot of work, but I love it. I don't think of it as work like I used to think of work as being work. But I do understand that it really comes down to me, any of the successes, any of the stuff getting done, I have to be the one to get in there.
Leah, I have hard enough time organizing one short book, 25,000 to 30,000 words. How did you stay organized with a 5-part series? And your books are not short books either. So, how do you juggle this? I mean, I can't fathom it. So what did you do?
That's a good question, and it's kind of a hard way to describe what I did do. Um, in a way, I really backed off of trying to control this story, and I don't want to say I channeled the book because that's not the appropriate term, but I was able to get into a space where I wasn't trying to control what was going on, but I was allowing it to resonate with me so that I could adequately tell the story. The boards are a lifesaver. I mean, they're an absolute necessity. For me, I cannot, I constantly have my board around so that when my brain starts spinning in all of these different directions, I can look at the board and the board reminds me that, yes, this is a process and this is organized. The other thing that I do is I really only work on specific segments. Over last summer, my family and I, we went on an RV trip and we drove up to Colorado from Arizona. My husband drove the whole time. And I sat in front and I had 3 books on mushing, which is, dog sledding, which I've never done in my life. And the only part of my book I focused on was being in the whole mushing world, in the Nunavut territory world. And all I did was think about that. I didn't think about anything else that had to do with the book. I just focused in on that one part while I was, driving through the mountains, and it worked really well. And then I just put that part aside and it just got plugged into the book. And then another time when I was up in Sedona and I was working on some of the mythological elements, that's all I worked on. And then what I could do is go into the board and take these segments that I really dove into, that deep emotional connection, that kind of multidimensional connection. And then I was able to use a very organized part of my brain and take those kind of abstract things and just stick them into their segments.
Leah, one more time, your name, the name of the book, your website, and your Twitter handle, and then we'll close out this segment and open up the Q&A.
Okay, so the title of my book is Catch a Falling Star. It's by Leah Downing, who's me, and it is the first in a 5-part series. The second book is titled The Path of Least Resistance, and that is set to come out at the end of the year. My website is leahdowning.com, and my Twitter handle is L-E Downing author.
Leah, thank you very much. I'm going to close this out, and then I'm going to be coming back on another computer, so just stay put. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Rama.